In this lesson, we'll take a look at how to draw an old tree using charcoal, sepia tones, and white charcoal. For this demonstration, I'm working on toned Stonehenge paper. This paper is very smooth and soft and will accept the material nicely, giving us a lot of control. I'm also using a special set of pencils. These pencils are made by Koh-i-Noor, and the pencils are Gioconda pencils. I'm starting here with a red chalk pencil. This will provide a lot of the sepia tones that we want to show through in the final drawing. We'll start by sketching out the outer contours of the tree, and because this is an old tree, we're going to exaggerate the contours. This means instead of using straight contour lines, we'll allow the lines to be a little bit bumpy, and we may exaggerate these a little bit further than what we're actually seeing to make the tree have a little bit more character and appear quite a bit older. And instead of drawing the tree perfectly upright, we're going to allow it to lean a little bit at the base towards the right, and then lean a little bit to the left towards the top portion of the tree. Trees that have lived a long life have seen their fair share of environmental factors that affect the overall appearance. Here in the early stages of the drawing, we're concentrating on making light marks. We don't want to make marks that are too deliberate too early in the process. There's plenty of time to go back and make our lines a little bit stronger. We can add a few bits of detail as we see them too, as we work through the overall drawing. We can add additional branches as we go. And as we do so, we're considering the form of each one of these branches. The smaller branches we can consider almost like tubes that bend and curve at different directions. This is even true for some of the much smaller branches that we'll begin to add now. Of course, these smaller branches bend and curve at unpredictable angles, and they also taper as they extend out from the base of the tree. These smaller branches, of course, overlap each other. And we'll continue to add some medium-sized branches as well as we see them. And of course, some of these branches extend outward towards the viewer, and some extend away from the viewer as well. So you'll have to pay close attention to the tree that you're drawing to see these, but it's always important to include at least a few of these to make the tree feel a little bit more three-dimensional. Then we'll go back and start to add some indications of some leaves here and there. The focus of this drawing, of course, is on the trunk of the tree, but we still will include some impressions of the leaves. A loose, sketchy circular pattern is created to create this texture. Then we can go back and start to increase the line quality. This means making a little bit more variety in the lines that we've drawn, especially around the outer contours of the tree itself. This portion of the tree, of course, is thicker, so the contour line here should be a little bit thicker too to communicate some volume. Now we can start to go inside of the tree and start to develop some of the textures on the bark of the tree. Of course, this is going to be very important in creating the illusion of an old tree. Now, if we take a closer look at the texture of the tree, we can see here that our contour lines, or rather our cross contour lines, should change direction according to the different section of the tree. This particular tree has quite a bit of knots and protrusions that are happening there, and in each one of these sections, the line direction changes. This is, of course, true for all the different parts of the tree. We need to closely consider the cross contour lines that we create and make sure that they flow with the overall texture and form of the tree. We'll continue making these marks and again consider the line quality as we do so. These lines should not be as thick as the outer contour lines that we created. Instead, these lines are smaller and produced with a lighter touch. With the majority of the contour lines in place, we can start to consider the value. Value, of course, is the darkness or lightness of a color, and we'll want to create a full range in this drawing. We'll start by applying applications of the white charcoal pencil. We're applying the white charcoal pencil now since we want to preserve some of the lightest values. If we started with darker applications, it'd be much harder to layer the white charcoal over the top. We will revisit locations with the white charcoal later in the process, but for now, we want to preserve the lightest areas. As you can see, a large portion of the tree is covered here with the white charcoal applications. With much of the lighter values preserved, we're ready to start addressing some of the darker values, and we'll start by easing our way into it. So instead of reaching for the dark black charcoal pencil, instead we'll reach for a sepia light pencil. Not only will we address the darker values here with this pencil, but we'll also address some of the texture as well. As you can see, the marks made here also flow with the cross contours over the form of the tree, producing the illusion of the texture of bark. We're going to focus mostly on creating these darker values on either side of each one of the portions of the trunk and dominantly on the right side of the trunk. Our light source is originating from the left side in the scene, meaning that most of the darker values are going to exist on the right side of the tree. Now, since our tree is curved, however, a lot of the lighter values are going to exist closer towards the center portion of each section of the trunk. This means that some darker values will actually happen on the side that's closest to the light source. Here again, we'll consider creating a bit of line quality, so we'll adjust the pressure that we place on this pencil to produce lighter lines as well as darker and thicker lines as well. With a little bit of a closer look, we can see that the texture changes on the bark itself as well. In some areas, we'll create straight linear lines, and in other areas, we'll create small circular strokes to create the texture. Sticking with this pencil, we'll also address some of the smaller branches that extend out from the core of the tree. Again, these marks are thicker and taper as they extend outward. We'll go over a few areas with the white charcoal pencil, easing the transition of contrast if needed. Now we can start pushing some of those darker values even further, this time with a black charcoal pencil. Instead of covering up all of the marks that we created with the light sepia pencil, we're going to concentrate on the areas of darkest value with the black pencil. This will allow the light sepia tones to act as a mid-tone value. As we add these marks and create a bit of darker value, we're still going to consider the cross contours and the texture of the trunk of the tree. So the lines that are created with the black charcoal pencil should also mimic the lines that we created earlier with the pencils that we've used previously. Of course, we'll be addressing the darkest areas on the trunk of the tree. This means the small recesses that happen here and there, but we'll also concentrate on the areas of strongest shadow as well. By adding this darker pencil, not only are we creating a fuller range of value, but we're also increasing the contrast, which makes the details pop quite a bit more. On the lower portion of the tree, you might notice that there's an area that has been left untouched. In this area, we'll add a few leaves closer to the end of the process. We haven't added them yet because they're going to be lighter in value. Now that we've got the majority of the midtones and darker values in place, we can go back with a sharpened white charcoal pencil and begin enhancing some of the highlights. Not only will these highlighted marks add to the texture and the illusion of form, but they also increase the range of contrast and value in the drawing. Here again, just like we have with previous applications, we'll consider the cross contours of each section of the tree, developing not only the texture but also the illusion of form. Here you can clearly see that the texture on the bark of the tree changes. In fact, small circular marks are made to address this section. Now we're ready to address some of the finer details, and to do so, we'll use the Negro pencil, which is basically a black pencil. This pencil isn't powdery like the charcoal pencil. It feels somewhere in between a graphite pencil and a black colored pencil. It gives us quite a bit more control over the mark, and it helps us to refine the edges of things. We'll use it to darken up some of the areas around the edges of the tree, and then we'll use it in tandem with white charcoal applications to create some of the leaves at the bottom and around portions of the tree. We'll first define the area or shape of the leaves using the white charcoal pencil, then we can refine some of the edges and add some of the details using the Negro pencil. At the bottom portion of the tree, we'll add some indications of some grass and some plant life, first with the white charcoal pencil. We'll just simply pull strokes upward from the base of the tree. Then we'll go back and add a few indications of shadow and a bit of detail using the Negro pencil. For a bit of added depth, we'll add a few strokes with the white charcoal pencil behind the tree. Now, using the white charcoal pencil, we'll go up into the canopy of the tree, first defining the space that the leaves will fill. These marks are loose because we don't want to define the leaves completely, we just want to give the impression of them. Once these marks are in place, we can go back with the Negro pencil and start to define a few of the details. Again, these details are just simply loosely defined. We'll make some of the darker marks in the area of shadow, leaving some of the areas lighter to indicate a bit of light getting through. These marks are almost controlled scribbles. We just want to give the impression of the texture of leaves without taking away from the beautiful texture that exists on the trunk of the tree. And now our drawing of an old tree using charcoal, sepia tones, and white charcoal is complete. If you enjoyed this video, then subscribe to the channel. And if you're ready to learn even more about drawing and painting, then check out our comprehensive membership program, which includes video courses on drawing and painting, weekly live lessons, ebooks, lesson plans for teachers, and much, much more. So to learn more about our program, click on the button on the center of your screen or click on the card in the upper right-hand corner. Thank you so much for watching.